Good evening, everyone. I think we'll get started now. I'm Brenda Nations. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Iowa City. So welcome and thank you very much for coming tonight. We're excited to have you here. I'm just quickly going to go over what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to have the mayor welcome us. Then we'll have our steering committee members present the plan and what we've been doing. So Matt and Ingrid will be doing that. And then we have a couple of activities that we'll be doing. So make sure that you stay around for both of those after the presentation. So with that, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Jim Throgmorton, and also thank our city council for everything they've been doing with climate. And it's because of them that this is happening. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here with you on this warm and getting warmer night. It's a real treat to be here. I counted almost 100 people. It's a great turnout, and usually people keep drifting in, so we may end up with a larger number. Somebody just handed me this, Connie. No, I'm sorry. I thought I saw Connie Mutel down here. I was going to say something about that. Anyhow, Connie's not here. First thing I want to do is, after thanking you, is thank the people who have been involved in preparing this draft climate action and adaptation plan. Brenda Nations, Ashley Monroe, Lindy, I'm forgetting, Lindy, your last name? I'm forgetting. Thank you. And all the people affiliated with Elevate and the whole team of consultants that helped us. And also the Climate Action Steering Committee, 13 people. From representing various stakeholders, but also representing the people of Iowa City. So if you're here and you're a member of the steering committee, would you please stand up and sort of wave your hand? There's one person back there, another in the back corner. All right. Thanks so much for everything you've done. You're going to hear a lot more about the draft action plan here shortly. It indicates how we can achieve the goals we already set out, which are basically those that came out of the Paris Accord, 3 years ago, Brenda? Is that when it was adopted? Yeah. But we're going to have to take things step by step, and in fact, we will do that. But a key part of that is the involvement of the people of Iowa City, various organizations, various neighborhood groups, various individuals. It's really crucial that we all find ways to partner to make it possible to do the kinds of actions we need to take in order to achieve our carbon emission reduction goals. Some of them involve voluntary actions like, riding a bike. Many of you rode your bikes down here. I did. I do it all the time. Most of you know that. It's not the only thing we can do, though. So we need creativity. We need innovation. We need people to work together to figure out how to do things in a very constructive, collaborative kind of way. Also, we have various groups in our community that are not tightly connected to this idea of trying to reduce carbon emissions in order to protect our climate. Not connected, but we need to reach out to them. And one of the ways we're doing that is for them to know that our draft climate action plan contains elements that are all about social equity. So I think we'll hear more about that tonight as well. The last thing I want to mention is that in another couple months, there's going to be a meeting of the mayor's, what's the word, not compact, what's it called now? No, the thing I signed up for. It's not the consortium, but covenant, the mayor's covenant. Yeah, there's going to be a meeting of the mayor's covenant in another couple months out in San Francisco. And I am looking forward to going there with an adopted plan in hand to be able to say to other people, we are doing what we can in Iowa City to enable people throughout the world to have a healthy climate to live in for years to come, for decades to come, for perhaps a long time after that. So I could probably keep talking, but it'd be better for us to hear from the committee. And who's going to speak next? Committee members coming up. Okay, come on up, introduce yourselves, and thanks for the great work you've been doing.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming here tonight. My name is Ingrid Anderson. I am the University of Iowa representative on the Climate Action Steering Committee. I'm also the chair of the committee.
My name is Matt Krieger. I'm an architect with Newman Munson Architects, the representative architect on the steering committee.
And we're just going to give you a brief presentation. We'll try to keep it short. We know we want to get input from the community, and a lot of this is to get feedback from you all, so we're not going to stand up here and take a lot of time in this meeting just talking at you, but we're going to very briefly at a high level discuss the elements of the draft climate action plan, and then there's going to be a breakout session. You can see the posters around the room, and we'll explain that a little bit. We'll get feedback from you, and then we'll come back together after that and discuss the climate action pledge, and that'll be the last portion of the evening. First, we want to discuss just the timeline for this climate action process. The City of Iowa City has actually been working on this since 2007 in various capacities, but this particular process got started in 2016 when the Iowa City Council set emission reduction targets for 2025 and 2050. And that was also when Mayor Throgmorton signed the Compact of Mayors, which has now turned into the Covenant of Mayors. So coming from those actions, once those emission reduction targets are set, then we have to come up with a way to actually fulfill those goals. So the City of Iowa City City Council decided to set up a climate action steering committee and hire a consultant to develop a climate action plan. And that happened in 2017. Our first steering committee meeting was in May 2017, and we've been meeting periodically since then. We've had 9 steering committee meetings total. The committee, as Mayor Throgmorton said, there's 13 of us, 7 stakeholder representatives from the community, and then there were 6 at-large seats. So members of the community applied to be on this committee. We've also had 2 community meetings, including this one. So we had a committee meeting back in November, and now we're meeting again now for public input. The city and the consulting team also conducted stakeholder interviews early in the process to get feedback from the community. They also had a community-wide survey that had 800 respondents, and they've also worked closely with the city to capitalize on existing data. The Sustainability Department and Brenda Nations have worked on a greenhouse gas inventory for a long time, and there was existing data and existing efforts to capitalize on. So a lot of that was bringing that information together, bringing information from the community together, and using that to inform the steps of this climate action plan. So the goal, obviously, of this planning process is to figure out what actions the community and the city can take in order to reach these goals that the City Council has set for Iowa City in greenhouse gas emission reductions. So there's 5 main areas of the plan. There are 35 actions total within these 5 different action areas, and we'll talk very briefly about the 5 different action areas, and then we'll talk about how Iowa City takes on those actions to reach our emission reduction targets.
Great. So the first action area that we'll be discussing is the action area of buildings. So buildings actually has the largest potential emission reduction potential, and really that starts with looking at our existing buildings as well as our new. So we need to look at both electricity and natural gas, as both contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions. And we also, what you'll see here are that, and within each section, are the actions that have asterisks are kind of the higher priority, or the actions that have the greatest potential impact within each of these action areas. So it's not to say that some of the others aren't important, but the ones that have asterisks are the ones that we'll probably spend a lot of our focus on. So you can see there at the top, we have the increasing energy efficiency in residences, but we also need to do that in businesses, both existing and new, and also trying to increase on-site renewable energy systems. So that would be increasing solar throughout the city, but also another important part of that is electrification. So we need to be able to convert from using natural gas to electricity. And the reason for that is that Mid-American Energy, and you may have seen this in the news already, has this goal of reaching 100% renewable energy for electricity production. So if we convert from natural gas usage to electricity usage, we will thus be using more renewable energy. So that's one of the big impacts and action items here within this area.
The next action area is transportation. Obviously, various modes of transportation emit more or fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So again, here the actions that are priority actions have asterisks. That's hard to say. Asterisks by them. But a lot of these, the city already has a mass transit system, so what are ways that we can increase usage of those or increase routes perhaps? Another option is pedestrian and bicycling. The University of Iowa and the city have been working for a while on potential bike share options, so there are actions like that that can be taken. And then basically efforts to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips taken within the city.
The next action area is waste. This is one that a lot of people really relate to because it's the one that I think impacts most of us on a daily basis. And so a lot of us are very comfortable with the actions in this section. The whole goal with these strategies is to essentially send less garbage to the landfill. Recycling is obviously the go-to, but and composting now with this availability throughout the city for that is making an impact. But we also need to think about and committing to reusing items and using less items. And so this is both action areas that take into effect individual actions, but also citywide and municipal actions.
Another important aspect when you're talking about climate plans is adaptation. So a lot of the actions focus on greenhouse gas reductions, but obviously there are effects that are already being felt from climate change. And so part of our job here is to have Iowa City be resilient in the face of those kinds of effects. We have already experienced flooding back in 2008. Luckily, we're not experiencing flooding so much this year, but there are different parts of Iowa in Des Moines or Northwest Iowa that are experiencing flooding this year, and all indications are that these kind of extreme weather events will be increasing. So the plan also focuses on, for instance, when those extreme weather events happen, they disproportionately affect vulnerable populations. So how do we better serve those populations to prepare them and help them in the event of emergencies? Using public health impacts data and climate data to inform different adaptation strategies. And then coordinating with all other local agencies for emergency preparedness. Those kind of actions will help us not only reduce our emissions, but help us be a more resilient community.
And then the fifth and last action area is sustainable lifestyle. And so in sustainable lifestyle, the ideas here are to capture ways we can take personal responsibility for everyday habits. But it also addresses how the city can create a network of services, partners, and programs that support the entire community's efforts. We develop ongoing communications within this section, work to educate people, and work to ensure access to financial incentives so that everyone can participate. So this action area impacts what we do individually. You can see the Encourage a Plant-Rich Diet at the top. In fact, I think one of our partner organizations in the community already distributed flyers tonight about that. But some of those others are creating funding mechanisms, and those are the things that we need to look at in developing partnerships throughout the community. That might be public-private partnerships, that might be lobbying the legislator for additional types of funding streams, like property assessed clean energy, or working with municipalities and the utilities on PAYS programs. So there's lots of different ideas here, but we also want to generate more as part of this effort.
So now we'll talk quickly about how these various actions can be combined to reduce our emissions. So on this graph, what you see on the right, my right, your left, those are the baseline emissions from 2015. Is the long blue column. And then the next blue is emissions increase from business as usual by 2025. So what you see in orange are the different areas of emission reductions we can expect to get to green, which is what would be our emission reduction target in 2025. So the biggest portion of this here is a reduction in emissions from Mid-American switching to renewable energy. The next piece is the University of Iowa switching to zero coal by 2025. And then other other actions take other pieces of these emission reductions. So that's sort of a broad overview of how different actions will come together to reduce emissions across the city.
I think, when you looked at that last table, you saw that are the individual actions that we're taking really going to have an impact? And what you start to see is that they do have more of an impact in the long-term goal. So here, what you see here now is the 2050 goals. So in that far left blue bar, that's essentially staying the same, but we're projecting out additional emissions, obviously, within that second blue bar to get us to that peak emissions in 2050. And then those orange bars then, again, are where we're reducing emissions. And so the first two, again, are Mid-American's impact, and then the University of Iowa's power plant. But then you really start to see the impact that the energy efficiency programs within buildings has, renewable energy implementation, transportation changes, and waste, and the other action areas that we've already mentioned. To get us, again, to that far right green bar, which is our target goal in 2050. So that is a big high-level overview of the plan. We probably could have spent 3 hours standing up here talking about in detail each of the action areas, and we want to be mindful of your time. And so what we really want to do is spend a majority of our time tonight in the breakout sessions. So at each of the tables around the room are 5 of the action areas, and then actually a sixth one, which is outreach and equity. So we want to talk about, who should we be talking to? Who are the people we should be thinking of? How should they be incorporated into contributing to the plan and the actions that we take? So those are distributed around the room as part of this breakout session. And then after the breakout session, we'll come back again to talk about the pledge. So within the breakout session, I mentioned those 6 tables. We'll spend about 30 to 35 minutes on this activity. What we'd like you to do is to choose the one topic that interests you the most of those action areas. And then if you find it's kind of too crowded as you go to that table, try to find another table. But congregate around that. And then we have people from the steering committee, from the consultant team, and from city staff who will be manning those stations to walk through a series of questions that we want to gain your input on. And really, these are focused on implementation, right? So who do we need to involve? What are the barriers? What are the opportunities for developing actions within this? The action plan, if you look at it in detail, is a framework. It identifies what are the potential areas that we can look at, actions we can take. But it's going to take a lot of people working on that, and so we need everyone's input on how that's going to work. So again, participate. We hope that you don't spend, we don't have a lot of time within each area, so we hope you personally don't spend 5 minutes talking about one issue. It's more of a rapid fire type of setup to get your issues and your ideas out there.